Now let's add another shape up here. Again, it's just one of those small floating details. Maybe this can be white. I might refine this later with more details. And then I will add some highlights on the nose as well with the white color. Maybe on the lips as well. These are more like reflections, but in a very abstract and simplified way. Maybe a few more on the hair as well, just like this. I can simplify it, and then we can move on and just work a bit more on some additional small details around the nose. This is like a shadow under the nose again. Instead of using the skin tone, I'm going to use the yellow color. Maybe add another shape here below the lips as well. Just very subtle hints of shading in an abstract way. And then let's not forget these leaves that we wanted to add here on the left side according to the sketch. So I'm going to draw a few of these shapes quickly with the pen tool. We have a few of these placed down here. And then just keep drawing them one by one, and then we can decide in terms of arrangement whether we want them above everything or we want them to be blended in a bit more. Like with the shape builder, we can cut some sections off, so some details comes in front, some goes behind. I'm trying to create this interesting interaction between these elements, which establishes depth and connects all the elements together visually. So here again, another detail. And then let's just draw these as well quickly. One of the leaf, again with the pen tool. And then we have another one. Don't have to follow the sketch perfectly. There can always be a bit of creative freedom here. Can draw over it, roughly following the original shapes. And just a few more. Here's another one. And then we just need one more in between these other two leaves. Just repositioning this a bit. And then one last one here. And this is actually the only shape now that was missing from the sketch, the original sketch. Now everything should be in place. So we can check it without the sketch, and it is coming together really nicely. These leaves on the left side were really needed. I'm just going to cut into some of them to make them a bit more interesting. Using the eraser tool, I select them and then cut a few details in. But yeah, you can see how those green leaves on the left side really helped to bring everything together. It fills in that emptiness that we had on the left side. It establishes more balance as well. And now it's time to add some shading details. I'm going to use the art brushes, these custom brushes that I used already in other projects. These are already ready in the document if you start out, or you can bring them in from the brushes template that we have. And I define the shape within which I want to see the texture, and I can also move these around until I'm happy with the result. I was using the draw inside technique, which is the Shift D shortcut. If you press that twice, you can access it. Here I already have the lips, but I'm going to remove the fill color, and instead I again use the draw inside technique. Using these brushes, I just paint over it. And I want to keep it loose on one edge, while the other side, the top part of the lips, is a bit more defined. Now I'm going to select the face and again use the draw inside technique and use the same brush to create another shading detail around the cheekbone on the right side. And then once you have a brush stroke that you like, you can of course use the selection tool, move it around and refine it. I'm going to just add a few more here on the top, shading on the forehead, It's almost like the hair is bleeding into the skin details. Now we can move on and do the same thing on the neck as well. I would like to have some white details bleeding in here. So it's almost as if the illustration is fading out. So the background white color is bleeding into these shapes. And now I'm using the magic wand to select all the leaves. So by clicking on them, it selects all the objects with the same color. It's a very quick and easy technique. I would like these to also bleed into the background. So I have them all selected and I'm going to group them together with Command or Control G. And once they are a group, within the opacity options, I add an opacity mask. And by turning off the clip option and selecting the opacity mask, we will be able to paint inside the transparency of this group. So if I now use the same brush that we used before, these art brushes, but with a black color, which I'm just adding to the swatches, with this, I will be able to hide details from this group. So I can just start painting, and you can see it's almost as if I'm erasing from the leaves. This is a very, very useful technique. I use it often when I try to integrate some elements and again add some more interest into composition, make it feel a bit more organic, have some texture in it. And don't forget to get out of the opacity mask when you're ready. And now moving on, I'm going to do the same thing here on the nose, what we've done with the lips. I'm just going to extend this shape a bit, dragging up the anchor points. And then I'm going to hide the fill colors, use the draw inside technique, and use the same brush that we had before to define this with this texture and shading. But again, the bottom edge of the nose is filled in completely and the top is just fading into the skin tones. Now the highlights on the nose I'm going to quickly recreate with more of an artistic brush instead of using the original very solid shape that I had there. So this again just adds a little bit more textural detail. And like I was planning before, I also refine the highlights on the eyes. Using the eraser tool, I just cut into those shapes. And then I'm just using the same brush and add some additional refinements and details along the edges of some of these shapes. So I keep the shapes there, but just drawing around them, just to make them a little bit more interesting. And I'm going to also add some additional details, more of this textured brush around the edge of the hair in a couple of places. So I'm going to change the color of this to the same color as the hair and align it around the edges. I can use the anchor points to refine the angle of it. And this looks quite good. Let's just use this again in another position and align it. Again, that creates a nice edge detail. And we can also use some brush details on this darker detail. So the shaded part of the hair, again, we can align it around the edges. And just one more shape that I'm going to add here around the eye, just to extend that red detail using the pen tool. Just set it up, make sure it goes in the right place, behind the dark details and in front of the yellow part. And then there's only a few additional refinements I added after this, so we can see before and after. Before and after, that just brought things together even more.